Time to get your money right. And when we're talking about money, we're definitely talking about currency sometimes. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. dollar. Is it doomed as the reserve currency? Guys, this is a little bit of a weird one, but you've seen it in the news, right? You've seen it. Oh, the U.S. dollar is in massive trouble. And what does that mean for us as business owners? What does that mean for us as U.S. citizens? Obviously, we believe in capitalism and freedom and all of this foundation that allows us to be able to pursue our dreams. And, if you've ever lived in another country or been there for a long period of time, especially maybe a third world country, boy, you come back with a lot of respect and a lot of gratitude for the country that you live in. So there's articles all over the place about, is the U.S. dollar doomed as the world's reserve currency? And I guess the first question that we probably should answer is, why is it even important that the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, and why does it even matter? And I've done a lot of research and study on this, and you guys are seeing this in all sorts of different videos and articles in the news. And the interesting thing about the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency is most countries and governments, like, for example, Greece, where my dad's family came from to come to America, or Argentina, where my aunt is from. Those two countries are two countries that actually defaulted on their currency bonds. And what happens is, in countries, even ours, where you spend a lot of money as a government, usually what ends up happening is at some point inflation goes up so high and your currency gets devalued so much that it's no longer worth anything. And then you end up defaulting because you've debased your currency. Basically, you just printed a lot of money and it screws your currency. Simple as that. So the cool thing about being or maybe not the cool thing, depending on your point of view, about the U.S. dollar being the global reserve currency, which it has been since the end of World War II back in 1945, is that if you do print a lot of money because you're the world's reserve currency, it doesn't hurt your currency or economy nearly so bad because the whole world is using it. But there's a big risk now because we are starting to see a push that maybe the U.S. is going to lose its global reserve currency. Ty, what have you seen about this in the news or out and about? Have you seen anything about this? And what do you think people think about this? I mean, the average business owner, we've got so many things to worry about. We really don't have time to worry about, is the U.S. dollar going to lose its reserve currency? But it is kind of a big deal. If it does, it'll affect all of us. But, what do you think people are thinking and small business owners are thinking about that?
Like you said, I mean, unless you're in that specific industry, I don't think people are really thinking about it all that much. I think the news definitely needs things to talk about. It needs things to try and scare people about, and so I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. At the end of the day, the research I've done is the mere fact that it's still by far the most commonly accepted currency across the world. It's not really, there's not a massive threat. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't done a ton of research. It seems
you're actually right on.
Okay, the greatest threat to this point has been cryptocurrency, but there's since then been a lot of regulations and slowdowns, and crypto's really fallen. But it seems like the greatest threat to our currency being the reserve currency was cryptocurrency. But that's to the extent. I haven't done a ton of research, but as long as it's still the most commonly accepted, the most commonly used, and frankly the most trusted, I can't think of another currency that across the world that I trust more than the US dollar to continue to prevail. So, I mean, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly right. And so I was asking ChatGPT, and then I was asking, have you heard of Bard? We're probably going to have to do an episode. Maybe we'll do an episode about Bard on Thursday. But Bard is Google's version of ChatGPT and AI.
Oh, okay.
And so I was watching the All In podcast, and these guys are, billionaire tech investors, just super smart, entrepreneurs, and they were doing a little demo on Bard, and I'd heard a little bit about Bard. It's Google's AI thing, and interestingly enough, I think in a lot of ways it may actually be better than ChatGPT, which is interesting. One of the issues with ChatGPT is if you ask questions like, hey, for example, U.S. currency, what's the Biggest, which global currency is used in most transactions across the world? And so you ask that to ChatGPT, and it's like, well, my data ends in September of 2021. Even version 4 does of ChatGPT. But if you ask Bard, it's like up to date as of today because it's so integrated in with Google and everything that Google's built out. So that was kind of interesting. So I asked Google, well, who is the number one currency in the world and based on all the transactions happening? And they're like, the majority of them are the US dollar. And it's anywhere from 60 to 88%, depending on which category. If it's a category of actual like foreign currencies being transferred, it's 88%. If it's what percent of central banks, like every country has a central bank, like ours is the Fed, that decides on the interest rates and what they're going to be. But all the central banks in the world hold 60% of their assets in US dollars, including their own, right? And so that means that still it's by far number one. Number two is a lot of people would think it's China. It's not. It's the euro. And then number three is China, which is maybe 2 or 3%, even though it's the second largest economy in the world, because the government doesn't let their currency out and they don't let their residents move their money out of China very often because they want to control it and keep it all in-house. That makes it very unattractive. And so really, you're right. It's cryptocurrency is one of the biggest potential competitors for the US dollar, but even that would mean you would have to be doing business in crypto.
Yeah.
And you still don't really do business
and that's
in
where
crypto.
the fear was. A lot of people predicted that's where we were going. Like you could buy cars with Bitcoin, completely leaving the dollar behind, but I just don't see
the government won't allow it.
Yeah, it can't.
Yeah, government won't allow it, but I love the idea of it. I love the idea of, hey, let's go buy something in Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency there is. So then the other thing that you've been hearing a lot of is, everyone's going to move to the Chinese renminbi. Renminbi is I think I say their global currency, and then if it's inside China, it's the Chinese yuan with a Y. But there was this thing about Saudi Arabia was going to start doing oil business with China in Chinese currency. And so that was coming about. But even then, it's still such a small percentage. So I just don't see with Chinese communist government, it's very unlikely to become the world's reserve currency. And if it doesn't become it, then no one else is going to.
Yeah, I mean, to be the world's reserve currency, you need to have vast majority of the trust across the world. And I don't see 80% of these other countries ever trusting China. So.
No, you can't even trust China's numbers that they give out.
No.
One number I just saw that was crazy is Chinese 20-year-olds population, everyone in their 20s, 20% of them are unemployed in China. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I mean, fact of the matter this, if you go around even our office, you go to our 25, 30 different employees and say, what's the currency in China? I would argue that less than 5% of our employees could even tell you what the currency is. I bet most of them could tell you the currency in Europe, but if you went to a classroom or a business in Europe or a classroom or a business in China or even Guatemala and said, what's the currency the U.S. uses, I bet every single 95% of them say the U.S. dollar. It's out there, it's commonly known, it's trusted, and that's what matters right now.
One of the principles that we live by, and this is on our wall, is control what you can control. And so there's always something crazy happening in the news, whether you're worrying about World War III with Russia and Ukraine or China and Taiwan, or you're worried about the U.S. losing its global currency. All of those things are well beyond our control. But what can we control? We can control what we do as business owners, as entrepreneurs, and control our world, right? We can deliver better value to our customers and clients. We're going to talk about this Nike film and how they were focused on that. We can create a great culture within our team. And that was what was so awesome about the corporate retreat we did last week, is you could just feel the culture and listen to, I just sat and listened to people talk about what it's like to work at seven figures, and just a lot of positive things. Of course, not perfect. A lot of things we're always trying to improve on and make changes, but those are the things that we can control. You can control what happens in your home. You can control the values and principles that your children and that you and your spouse are are teaching them. Like those are things that we can control. And so if you control what you can control, and excellence and that high standard and participation trophies are not a part of what we do, those are the things that you can actually make a big difference. And so the more of us that are doing those things, and that's one thing I hear too, is there's all this talk that the U.S. is in decline and that everything, obviously a lot of our schools don't teach that we're the best country in the world anymore. They teach some of these different things that may be true in some aspect, but certainly aren't. It just doesn't even pay attention or give credit to all of the good things. And out of all the countries that have had the opportunity to take over other countries and have almost always, tried to help others, no one's done a better job of that than the United States. So,
yeah, amen. And last, what can we do to prepare outside of that? People want more of a clear-cut, straight answer. Like, if you actually believe the dollar is disappearing and we're doomed, buy things that hold value in whatever currency is out there and taking over. Buy things like gold and property that doesn't matter if it's the euro, the pound, whatever it may be. You can sell gold for whatever currency you need at that time. So,
the top three would probably be gold, real estate, and crypto.